Hi everyone. I wanted to record this video just to give you a bit of background around why Kiraa is different and special. And to do this, I sort of want to go back and explain the history of knowledge management systems, starting with the 1980s when Apple released a promotional video, I guess you'd call it, or a conceptual video around a product that they had imagined called Knowledge Navigator. This product was well ahead of its time, and it wasn't even technically capable of being delivered at that stage. But what I really like about it is that even back then, you could see how technology innovators were imagining ways in which we can interact with technology to help make decision making easier and faster. So I'll quickly just have a look at that, show you that video. This was from the 1980s, a little bit over the topic. Sort of talks about, I'll turn that down. It sort of shows people interacting with technology in a way that today seems almost a little bit realistic, but back then it would have been very futuristic. You can see people talking to their technology. They're getting answers back through a virtual assistant. Talking about appointments, it's going out externally looking for information. It's a really interesting concept, but obviously was never even close to being possible given the technology that existed at the time. And this is what actually happened to a lot of these expert systems. People were very excited about the idea that they could train algorithms to answer questions, but what the problem was is that we could never actually program enough rules fast enough to give useful analysis. So they basically required people to go through and program every possible scenario, which was really not feasible given the range of possibilities that people might face in sort of decision making every day. So this was a rule-based approach, didn't really work very well. Great concept, but it just really wasn't practical, and really not much happened on expert systems then for a long time, up until ChatGPT really started to re-trigger the idea that we could actually get a conversational assistant that would help us make decisions. So if I fast forward now to sort of earlier this year, this is a product that I know and love called IBM Planning Analytics. You can see IBM here has experimented with a virtual assistant. So a virtual assistant is kind of the next level up, which was designed to help humans perform activities using command lines or speech. So an example of this is Siri or Alexa. This one here is the IBM Watson Assistant version, which is allowing people to move or interact with the system through a conversational agent. Unfortunately, I've got my face over the bit that actually shows the bit where the person's typing. But bottom line is that it's a way for people to issue commands to an application to do things on their behalf. It's an interesting idea, but it's a pretty poor execution, because one thing we'll notice is it's quite slow. And I would even argue that it's actually faster just to use the mouse in this case. So this is not a really great or a compelling example of how we would use or how we would get accelerated decision making. It's, to be honest, it's probably even a bit more cumbersome than just using the mouse natively. Earlier on this year, I also saw a really good example from Snowflake, and this is starting to enter into the territory where you can get useful information out of your RAG agent. So this is using a technique known as RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's similar to a virtual assistant in that it's processing actions on the user behalf, but the difference being that it's got underneath that a large language model, which is trying to make sense of that information and present it back to user in a meaningful way. In this example, you see, turn that down. In this example, you'll see that Jeff here is typing in some questions, and you can see what the RAG agent is doing is it's converting those questions into SQL commands. So it's using a thing called a semantic layer to make sense of the underlying database with context that the user has provided. It's using that semantic layer to form SQL statements to go and run against a database, return that database SQL statement, and then reform a response back to users and present it in a text or a graphical way. And here you've got some nice charts, which is which is an interesting idea. The problem with this, though, is it's really not scalable, and you can see that it's slow. It's not something that I think you can see on every desktop in the future. It's just too cumbersome for most people. This is definitely more of a technical solution, but I wouldn't say this is anywhere near a knowledge management system yet. It's still transactional. It's still really operating at that information layer. So that now brings me to Kiraa, which is another step above RAG agents, and that's because it's using a technique known as cache augmented generation, or CAG. CAG is different. You'll notice straight away, you'll see how fast it is. You'll see that it's basically conversational speed analytics. And not only is it really fast, it's actually got some very advanced reasoning capability. So you'll see here we're asking a question around what is the account manager's best customer. So there's a couple of levels of reasoning involved in answering that question. And you can see here that Kiraa has done that exceedingly well. And that's only possible because of the cache augmented generation technology underneath it. So what I'm trying to show you here is that even though the ambition existed in the late 80s to have these kind of expert systems helping leaders make decisions, we really haven't had the technical capability up until now to be able to realize that vision. And I think Kiraa for me is probably the closest thing that's available today that resembles that original Knowledge Navigator vision that Apple had in the late 80s.